Okay, it's day 107, and this is part two. This is going to be a little bit of a retraction because I got a phone call from John O'Loughlin, and O'Loughlin, I think it's how it's pronounced, and he's introduced himself to the different audiences, who is Macduff, and he said, "Hey, you got it wrong. Never went to the houses of these Nazis and so forth." I thought he told me about car chases and stuff that were kind of exciting, but I in no way want to intimate anything that didn't actually happen. So I'll let John tell that story in his first person for himself, which probably sets up another great crowdsource the truth interview with Jason. I would hope he would go on there and correct the record. But be that as it may, the big thing here is intent and trying to do the best you possibly can do and tell the story as true as possible. And I think this Heinrich Müller story is true. The Nazis did come here. At least what he told me is he said that Reinhard Gehlen had come to Fort Hunt. If that's not true, then I would want him to correct that. And they had infiltrated NASA, and they had infiltrated our Department of Defense in terms of the weapons manufacturing, and had infiltrated our CIA. So this idea of the Fourth Reich is very much alive. I may have a few of the facts wrong as far as the recalling things, and that's good to correct it. But I don't think I have the main story wrong at all. That this was an attempt at the Paperclip was an attempt to survive the Second World War and then to rise again. It's not just survival; it's also to thrive and then conquer, much like the Third Reich was trying to do. So I don't think I have the big story wrong. I may have got the facts wrong about he didn't go to the houses or anything. I thought he maybe just took them to these places where the like Fort Hunt and so forth, where the Nazis were. But that makes my point all the more, which is this form of journalism is immediately corrected within minutes, and I immediately get a phone call and say, oh, something's wrong, and you immediately change it. Versus look at the PP dossier in comparison, and look at what it's created, the PP dossier with all these PP FISAs. And we've lived with that for over a year, okay, which is just out and out. We've had people say things on Friday that they're recanting today. So it in a way makes the point of journalism here. And here's Leni Riefenstahl, and where the old method was you could come out with these great propaganda pieces and you could tell the story of this common man who went to war and got 2 Iron Crosses and then went and became a political figure and then went to jail for his beliefs, and then he writes a book in prison of Mein Kampf, and then it becomes the manifesto for the common man, and that motivates everyone to say, I'm going to devote my life as in this mass every bit as much as Hitler did, right? And this is the idea of Bannon. This is what they thought Bannon would be. We're going to get everything we want. And Mooch is saying we're going to get everything we want in the defense budget because we've got this ability to this mass audience. Trump's going to be this this iconic figure. The problem is Trump decided, wait a minute, I have something here that's new. That really is, instead of everyone here being in lockstep and listening to a speech, everyone here has a cell phone. And everyone here is doing independent Google searches. And the wisdom of this crowd is determining in a kind of an organic way the best way forward. That there's a power in the sense that no one individual is over another individual. It's really the triumph of der individual. I said earlier triumph of Wahrheit, which sounds like far right, but Wahrheit is truth in Germany. I don't like the word truth. I like the word individuality, because the actual fact is every person out there, including John, has a cell phone that he can immediately pick up, call me and say, you got it wrong. And I can be on here 2 minutes later recording a corrected version. And that in and of itself becomes a model of why this medium is better. Because it's more than just a definition of truth. It's a definition of a new form of journalism, which is a interactive journalism. Now here's the story of here's Leni Riefenstahl, the filmmaker who made these this great film Triumph of der Willens, as far as technical. I'm going to use her picture to talk about Lindy. Lindy is this person that Task Force knows, and she's the person that was on stage watching the effect of the films in all these theaters. Her father owned all these theaters and was on stage with Hitler, going around to all these different places. So it had this massive emotional wave of appeal. But then she also was around to see the concentration camps and see what this kind of group think created. And she had the last years of her life she spent in repentance, where Task Force was kind of her confessor and taking care of her. And it really kind of made a very strong influence on Task Force to say, I have to tell this story, because she told the whole manifesto of this story. She told the manifesto of, how the Nazis were going to rise again, and these manuscripts and so forth, and they were going to have a diaspora of people over a wide area, and we're going to take, we're going to cultivate these youth to support us just like Hitler did. And isn't this really what ended up happening? Aren't these the Jake Tappers and the Evan Perez's and so forth of journalism now? Weren't they raised in these schools to have this righteous attitude, to the point where they're saying, don't show us the FISA. People aren't smart enough to see the FISA. These Walmart people aren't smart enough. These deplorables are not smart enough to see the FISA. Well, actually, everybody out there has a cell phone, and everybody else out there has a computer, and they're able to do these searches. So these kind of cartoonish ways of looking at the world, they're kind of almost the Homer Simpson view that they have, is not correct. And what they're learning is, yes, we know what a FISA is. We know that you have to have probable cause. We know you have to have these things to do unmasking now. All these technical things that they didn't think the American people were capable of, we found that, no, we're quite capable of. And also the American people can recognize a propaganda when they see it. So when they see the CNN and they see the press kids, even in this last year, even in this last day from seeing this FISA, a huge amount has changed. They've seen the manipulation. They've seen how this kind of intelligence agency thinking of grabbing all these different, informants and creating this little Potemkin village or this little school play. And people are now seeing that there's a wave of all these executives that have been brought in with no experience, just like the Gestapo and this 333, this JTTF kind of taking over of these different police departments and so forth. And this FISA really, I think, is this moment where, Steve Jobs throws has that commercial in 1984 where the girl comes down and she throws the thing through the screen. He really believed that. I mean, I can tell you, I spent about 2 hours with him, and he did a demo all by himself in Eugene, Oregon. And I came up to him, and there was only like 10 people in the audience, and I had a chance to talk to him for a long time. He really believed that insanely great thing that he was saying. He believed in his heart that the expression, the full potential and expression of each individual was why he lived. And the reason why he was such a taskmaster in engineering departments, and kind of a jerk, but he got results. He spent more time I saw him at the bottom of his career at Next, and he spent more time on interface. He said, you guys have great tools in Unix. I was at Sun Microsystems at the time, but you need a better interface. And this is really all about the individual rather than our code and how we think about us.